Your doctor has about 8 minutes with you, and that might be the biggest problem in healthcare today. What if healthcare wasn't about reacting when something breaks, but about staying ahead of problems before they even show up? I think that's the difference between healthcare and sick care. Well, in today's episode, I'm sitting down with Chloe Harrouche, the founder of the Lanby, a modern patient-led concierge healthcare practice that blends traditional medicine, functional care, advanced labs, and real accountability. She talks about all the different testing that they do that your doctor's not doing currently, and all the different longevity approaches that they take to make sure your health is all-inclusive with all the newest trends out there. If you're interested, stay tuned. So I keep talking about my SKOOL community that I'm on, and I've grown into about 100 members, and I'm really trying to help out the over 40 crowd, putting a platform out there that's better than Facebook groups. I really love this SKOOL setup. Having any type of discussion, if you can look at the tabs here, from general discussion to focusing on diet, movement, inflammation. This is just where I'm spending my time. Once again, check out the show notes for the link, or if you just Google over 40 fitness hacks SKOOL, SKOOL, I will be the first thing that pops up on Google with the SKOOL emblem right there. And you can sign up that way. Check us out. Hope to see you there. Chloe, thanks for jumping on my show. It's real excited to see what your concierge practice is, patient-led concierge practice. That sounds a lot different than the normal healthcare systems out there. So can't wait to hear. But as my audience always knows, we want to kind of get to know you a little bit, your history, and how you kind of even got into this health concierge space. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So to give you some context on why I founded Lanby and sort of what motivated me, it really sort of started off with my personal passion for medicine. I studied bioengineering in undergrad at Penn and was always, someone who enjoyed being around doctors. I myself wanted to become a doctor, then realized, I would like to do a little bit more macro work. So I ended up going into healthcare consulting, and sort of through that experience was able to really learn about how the healthcare system works, and very much saw it sort of from this perspective of, awe. And, while I always, was working toward addressing inefficiencies, as obviously a consultant does, I still sort of viewed healthcare as being this very impressive career and wanted to, just be around doctors and be in and around the hospital. But when I was 23 years old, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which came as a huge surprise because I have no family history of breast cancer. And so we were very much all in shock. But my approach to treatment was, I want my doctors to like me. I want to be the best patient. I want to use this as an opportunity to, again, be close to doctors and sort of have them feel like, this was our patient that we enjoyed spending time with. And I think, subconsciously, I felt like if they liked me, they would spend more time with me because, again, I knew deep down that they don't have that much time. And so, to a certain extent, how could I, convince them that this was the person that they should spend more time with, which is a very messed up way of thinking, obviously. But again, went into this being like, I want to be the best patient. I want to say yes to every recommendation they have. And so my treatment was very much standard of care. I did surgery. I did the most aggressive surgery. I did a double mastectomy. Then I did, chemotherapy for about 3 months. Then I did radiation. And then I was, put on this drug for about 10 years. And that was my protocol. And, once I was done with radiation, I went back to my oncologist and I said, okay, I'm 24 years old at this point. What should I do for the rest of my life to make sure that this cancer doesn't come back? And his answer was really, there's not much you can do other than, don't be obese. And that was sort of what the studies had shown him, which was as long as you're not obese, you're not really increasing your risk of cancer. And as long as you stay on this drug that we want to put you on for the next 10 years, that's really all you can do. And that just didn't really satisfy me. I think I knew that wellness was becoming more and more relevant. And so I decided to do my own research and say, what is out there that maybe I should be integrating, whether it's my diet or exercise or supplements. I didn't know the answer, but I felt like the answers from my doctors weren't cutting it. And so that's when I started doing a deep dive in the wellness space. And I think through this whole journey, I just realized that it shouldn't be the patient figuring this out on their own. I ended up going through this whole rabbit hole of wellness where I just deep dove and became obsessed, which I'm sure resonates with a lot of your audience. When you learn about these things, it's really hard to create a boundary or to, some people have a hard time having discipline and implementing an exercise routine. I think for your audience is probably the opposite, where they know that they can do more. And so they want to do more. And so I was constantly doing more and ultimately burned out my body and really messed up my hormone health. And that led me down a whole other path, which was infertility. And the lesson overall was like, why did I do this? Why did I sort of take wellness into my own hands? What made me think that I was capable? Not only that, but why did I not have a clinical, support system to be able to help advise as to what were the wellness interventions I should follow and to what extent and who's tracking me? And so had I had this in place, a lot of the downstream effects of my wellness obsession wouldn't have happened and my outcomes would have looked a lot different. And so, why I'm passionate about this space of concierge medicine is because I feel like concierge medicine as a concept is so antiquated, similar to healthcare. The idea of concierge medicine was originally defined as how do we increase access to care? But access is no longer an issue. You have one medical, which is $200 a year. It uses your insurance and you can get access to care. That's really not what people are looking for anymore. I think what people want now more so is that trusted guidance, that personalized approach, the inclusion of wellness as part of their primary care. So to actually be proactive and preventive. And so, my goal was to modernize the definition and scope of concierge medicine to be more relevant to this consumer that wants to take control over their health and is disciplined and is motivated.
Sadly, that's kind of the story, for me too. Last, say, 5 years was really learning you need to take healthcare into your own hands. And I preach that all the time on my podcast. And it's awesome to see, I think the last maybe 2 to 3 years, more concierge companies or telehealth, ever since COVID happened, giving more access to the people. And not only that, but, I was introduced to the concept of DPC, direct primary care, which is like a concierge service. Doesn't seem to be as all-inclusive as Lanby is, but just the taste of, having someone outside of the big corporate health insurance companies being able to research their own stuff and give you access to other modalities and health and wellness options has just been huge. So I love that this is the change I see happening, and looks like you guys have created something similar too. So
yeah, I think the DPC model is growing very rapidly. And the reason for that is because also doctors are sick and tired of the pressure of insurance to push out so much volume. Like it's impossible for them to deliver comprehensive, quality, proactive care when they only have 8 minutes with the patient. And the reason they only have 8 minutes with the patient is because, again, they're incentivized by insurance to do as many visits as possible because that's how they make money. It's on a per visit basis. And so what DPC does really well is they don't charge you on a fee for service basis. They just charge you an annual or a monthly fee. And with that monthly fee, you get all-inclusive care. And so that's sort of similar to our model. We're an annual membership where it's all-inclusive. We don't want the patient to think about how much they're going to be charged per interaction with us. Instead, we want to create this ongoing conversation because that's where real magic happens. When you're, being held accountable, where there's follow-up, where there are check-ins, and you're not thinking, oh, this doctor just checked in with me. I'm not going to pick up the phone because I don't want another visit. I don't want to be charged again. Whereas it really should be this conversation around like, how are things improving? What can I help with? What's continuing to challenge you? So, I think there's a lot of hope in the fact that doctors are also pushing innovation forward by sort of taking the reins back.
The few doctors I've met that have switched to this DPC, that's the only, concierge style service that I know of. Their biggest thing, besides everything you talked about, was also, any education, ongoing education is literally what the corporation says, which is half the time big pharma coming in and just pushing their stuff. Going to the concierge style, you're free to open your wings, go to lectures, learn what you want to learn in your style. And I've only experienced 2 different DPC doctors and different, but I like that because, they were into different stuff and opened to new ideas and whatnot. So like I said, I love that. I've had a great experience and I feel like I'm in charge even in the DPC realm where I say, no, I want an MRI. I don't want an X-ray. Or I want to go see this person. No problem. And, the cash-based system has been working for me. So as far as Lanby, maybe let's stick with, because in my mind, I know what the DPC model is. How's Lanby different? How is it set up? When I went on your website, it seems like you have a team of 5 different doctors that are on top of you, which is, I've never had that. But walk me through the whole experience here.
So I think for us, it was 2 things. One is we wanted to shift the core model, sort of similar to how DPC works, where it was an all-inclusive membership. You don't have to think about costs beyond your annual membership. But then also recognizing that it's not just a matter of time, it's also a matter of expertise. Not all doctors, are trained in nutrition and wellness. It's not part of the medical school curriculum. And so in order for us to really deliver proactive preventive healthcare, a different team. We need doctors, yes, of course, but we need those doctors to be trained in functional medicine and prevention and longevity. But we need also a registered dietitian to be part of the team because so much of wellness is tactical. Like what should you be eating? And not just because your doctor says, okay, eat more vegetables, eat more fruits, eat more whole grains, less processed food, less sugar, like that's all obvious. But how do you actually do that? And how do you create a regimen that's also going to factor in specific deficiencies that you have from a nutrient level perspective, or specific genetics that you have that, prevent you from absorbing certain nutrients in the way that the majority of people absorb nutrients. And so that's where the personalization of nutrition wellness can also really move the needle and help sort of coach people through the actual implementation into their day to day. Because again, it's so much easier said than done. And then we also have a member advocate on the team who is sort of in charge of coordinating care. Again, doctors are not good at logistics or admin, right? But oftentimes, especially in a DPC model, they're doing it all. They're trying to sort of be business owners and doctors and coaches at the same time. And so again, it doesn't allow doctors to operate at the top of their license, but it also dilutes their ability to really focus on the things that they do really well. And so we have someone dedicated on our team that is in charge of really advocating for the patient, making sure that they feel heard and supported, and that we truly understand what success looks like for that patient. Is it, weight loss? Is it, body composition? Is it just getting rid of all these symptoms of fatigue and brain fog that they've been experiencing? Like, what does success look like? Or is it just feeling heard? And so we want to understand what those reasons for joining are so that we can deliver on it. But then also beyond their experience at the Lanby, we want to make sure that when we refer them to a specialist, we're referring them to someone that is going to deliver a similar, top-notch service. And ideally, that's where insurance can come in. And so we advocate for patients in that context as well, where we're using their insurance, we're helping maximize the value there. We're also sending them to specialists who we've already vetted on their behalf and who understand their health history. We're going to send them as a lot of information about the patient so that they're not going into that visit blind, that there's context, that there's preparation, and that there's collaboration, because we want this to feel, even though we do operate under different umbrellas, that we have this sort of coordinated network of specialists who we work with to deliver this continuous, comprehensive approach to their care. So that's sort of how we think about the care team model.
As far as like my DPC model, they kind of run it like a traditional doctor where you get one annual, that's pretty much it. But their team can help you, but there's nothing really, they're not actively going after you, which I saw on your website. There's check-ins, all that kind of stuff. There's really none of that with the DPC model. Yeah. It's just let us know when you're having problems, which, okay, that's better than what I had before, but no one's actively coming at me. I noticed on your website, there's like genetic testing, biomarker stuff. Is that part of the membership, or is that add-ons that are suggested?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So being DPC doesn't mean that you're innovating the scope of care. You're still going to do the typical annual physical, and that's probably it. You're going to interact with your physician really when something bad happens. Our mission was to say, okay, if we want to enhance someone's health, we need to be proactive. We need to be top of mind for them throughout the year, as opposed to just that once a year or when something bad happens. We ultimately want to avoid those bad things from happening. And it's not just about the common cold or the flu. It's also about chronic fatigue or weight gain over time, or, especially as women go through perimenopause and menopause, like building that adrenal strength to be able to withstand the inevitable fluctuations of your hormones. For men, we're seeing so much stress impact their testosterone levels. How do we mitigate that? How do we make sure that we're combating that stress with that internal resilience to be able to, really overcome, again, what's inevitable in life? We all work hard. We all are sort of dealing with the environmental stressors on a continuous basis. So how do we continue to optimize internally to make sure that we, withstand those stressors? So that's where the proactive model comes into play. In terms of things like genetics, so we do an initial set of labs as part of someone's baseline. And in those labs, we look at their metabolic markers, their cardiovascular markers, their nutrient levels, their hormone levels. Oftentimes in primary care, you're getting about 25 biomarkers tested. We test about 100 in just the baseline visit. And that allows us to really do a deep dive on your health. We're looking at underlying issues that most doctors are overlooking. And part of the reason they're overlooking it is because they simply haven't been trained on how to analyze them. So even if you were to go to your typical primary care doctor and say, can you please test my testosterone levels? They're going to say, why? Like, you don't need to be testing that unless you have clear signs of fatigue or, signs of deficiency in testosterone. And really, actually, that's a reactive way to look at optimizing your health, because testosterone is so important for longevity that we want to be proactive about making sure that if it is on the decline, and again, that decline can only be demonstrated if you have a baseline. And so if you're waiting for something bad to happen and you have a symptom, then you won't have that baseline. And so that's also where, we can really help to establish trends. So anyway, that's sort of part of the reason we do very extensive labs up front. And then that quarterly model really allows us to check in on progress and measure your progress. So if you are deficient in testosterone and we're actively making changes to your lifestyle, to your nutrition, your exercise, your supplements to be able to get that up, we want to see if those interventions are working after 3 to 4 months. And so, we have a smaller limited panel, but a personalized panel to see, okay, based on what we found was deficient in your initial set of labs, let's see what's improving. And then that's also where we might layer in advanced diagnostics. So whether it's genetic testing or a gut microbiome test, or, looking at your biological age, we want to be able to layer in other advanced diagnostics to say, what more can you do? Maybe you're not experiencing issues today with indigestion, but maybe your gut microbiome could be enhanced. And again, we're not necessarily doing this day one. These are things that we layer in over the course of someone's membership as they've sort of graduated from optimizing their baseline set of labs. So it becomes this sort of constant, iterative process where you're always working on something, you're always improving something and tweaking something. And genetics are really important because, again, that's where even if you're not experiencing symptoms today, your genetics can really inform what might be ahead. And how do we recognize what you are more at risk for and then focus on building resilience in that area, whether it's your heart health or your metabolic health. Like, we want to understand where it's worth it for you to focus your time. And again, that might be different from another person who's more at risk of cognitive decline, right? So that's where we can sort of use these diagnostics to be even more personalized in our approach. When it comes to labs, that actually goes through your insurance. When it comes to diagnostics are not covered by insurance. And so we recommend diagnostics based on your interest and your goals, but by no means are we enforcing that you do certain out-of-pocket diagnostics. And part of the reason that we don't bundle those diagnostics into our membership fee is because not everyone should do the same diagnostics. And so it would almost be unfair for someone to be overpaying for a diagnostic that they don't need. And that's where the personalized guidance can really help to, align interests for us and the patient, because we don't generate revenue from those diagnostics or the supplements that we recommend. Those get purchased separately. But that way patients know that when we are recommending something, that it's really for their best interest.
For my model doing DPC and basically just cash-based everything, cash-based is always a discount. And I'm assuming with Lanby, you have your places that you go to that you refer people that help them with costs and everything just because you're a business. And, with my model, the DPC method, I can do all those things as well, but I'm the one that's basically asking for it. And sometimes I have to go find it, but then I need my doctor's referral and no problem there. So I feel like I'm in control, but with Lanby, it feels like it's already all inclusive part of it. Basically, I'm trying to do a lot of my own biohacking stuff, and I have to teach my doctor on, the things I want to do versus it already being part of the program. So I'm seeing the difference here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of work on your plate to be listening to what's the latest research out there. What are the latest diagnostics out there? What are the supplements that are beneficial? And that's our job. Our job is to stay in the know of we go to conferences, we're reading books, we're listening to podcasts, we're talking to specialists constantly to be able to have all that information at our disposal so that we can personalize your experience. And I think the hard part for someone like you who's really trying to take control is, yes, your GPC doctor may say yes, but they don't have the experience to actually interpret the data that's coming through. And so you're not only having to have them order the test for you, you're also having to interpret the data and figure out how to actually use it. And that's where I think the value really comes into play, is turning that data into actionable insights. And that's where things like even a genetic test or a microbiome test, there's so much that is low hanging fruit that people just have data sitting there and they don't know what to do with. And that started with wearables, but now we're seeing it even more so with consumer diagnostics, where this sort of trend of empowering the patient has led to almost like a feeling of overwhelm, where you have all this data and you just don't know what to do with it. And that's where a place like the Lanby can really help to streamline and make that data meaningful.
So as far as starting with Lanby, you sign up. I'm sure I saw on the website if there was 5 different things you immediately get: consultation, go through the doctors. But once you've been part of Lanby, the normal routine is a quarterly check-in, or are there other touches that you're doing?
Yeah. So we have that quarterly sort of framework in place, and that sort of, again, creates this structure that allows people to have this ongoing progress or feedback loop. But then we also have an app that allows our members to chat with their care team in between those quarterly checkpoints. So, let's say you're on Instagram and you get fed this supplement that, again, you've been talking a lot with your friends about weight loss, and now you're seeing all these natural GLP-1 supplements come through. is this good? Like, what are the ingredients? Is there any clinical efficacy? Like, a lot of these supplement brands promote a lot of clinical data, but actually at sifting through that data is where the Lanby team can really come through and sort of demystify the good versus the bad and help direct you as to where is it worth you investing the money versus not. So that's where you would send a message in the chat being like, I just saw this supplement. What do you think? What do you think of the ingredients? Is it worth it for me? Or you wake up not feeling well, right? Like you're just thrown up all night. You don't know what food you should eat or if you should take supplements or if you should go to the ER and get an IV. What should you do? So it's guidance like that also in real time for acute issues that come up. And then there's the ongoing stuff that sort of percolates. Like I am someone who's really focused on my brain health. I just listened to this podcast about a new study that shows that intermittent fasting can really help to improve cognitive function, mitochondrial support. What do you think about it? And so it's more of like an educational conversation around, again, whether this type of modality or practice is something that you should invest in. Or it could be something as simple as I, need a dermatologist. I have a skin rash and I don't know whether or not I should just come to you or should I go to the dermatologist? And so people end up sort of using us again, mostly as a first line of defense in those instances, because we want to minimize how many other doctors we have to refer them out to. But of course, if we do need to refer them out, that's where our network of specialists comes.
I love that because besides the quarterly check-ins, if someone's real interested in all these new things, I'm sure there's a discussion, about it somewhere in your community. And for people who want to just get ingrained with it, jump in, converse. And then the people that are like, I'll just wait till my next check-in. That's fine. But that's why I don't have that right now. I don't have anywhere to go that you can sit there and learn about stuff besides, what I learn on my own podcast. I have the luxury of doing this and learning about stuff. But yeah, that's great.
It's so true. Yeah, it's so true. We all have our own wellness advisors will pick a topic and give a presentation on it and field questions. And it's really helpful for a lot of our members who, again, don't necessarily have that as a specific issue they're working on, but they want to know what else is going to be possible down the road when they've addressed that issue that's top priority. Okay, but now when they're done with that, what will they focus on next? And so hearing that, they could eventually look at optimizing their metabolic health or optimize their brain health. Like, what does that look like? How do you understand it? And sort of getting people excited about what other areas of health they could explore with the Lanby is really exciting and also just stimulates that intellectual curiosity, because I do agree a lot of our members are similar to you in that they want to learn what else is out there.
As far as like you mentioned, the Lanby program, offers the check-ins, the community, all the newest trends out there. If you get sick, you've got someone to talk to. Then you get in a car crash, that's why I said that people still have to have their health insurance to cover those big catastrophic events. And I understand that. I imagine that if someone's with like an HMO, is that going to work with Lanby? I know there's that problem that you have to go through the HMO doctors, all that kind of stuff. So is this more of people who are on the PPO plans or the share programs out there? And I'm actually part of a crowdfunding program, which is like literally the best insurance I've ever had in my life. But those are pretty much the ones that could work with Lanby, right? Because HMOs are out.
Yeah, exactly. I think HMOs are really, really difficult for us to work with. We've made exceptions for some people who are willing to sort of compartmentalize the two things, but it really is not great. I would say the best insurance plans for a practice like ours would be an EPO or a PPO. And I think, again, to clarify, it's not that the insurance is covering your membership fee. It's that we can be the providers when it comes to prescriptions, labs, imaging, and even referrals to specialists. So that's where we use your insurance. It's not for our membership.
I did the same thing where when I had Blue Shield insurance, I never used them. I just needed it for the catastrophic. They were the cheapest ones out there. And then I tacked on my DPC doctor and literally was the best care I ever got. And then, now I'm seeing all these other programs come out that are just next level. So, but that's the one thing I kicked off Blue Shield and got with that Crowd Health company. Way cheaper. I get to steer my health where I want to. You can submit some things to the crowd for funding. They'll pay you back certain things, and they pay actually for some of my DPC membership right now. So that's just the beauty of all these different programs coming together. Maybe Lanby one day will have their own crowdfunding ability as well. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. You'll have to tell me more about how it works.
Anything else in the future for Lanby right now that you're excited about? Anything new, or it's just...
Yeah. We have a crazy year ahead in terms of launches. We're actually launching a metabolic health program, which is going to be available for non-members. So this is part of our Just the Wellness series where non-members can still tap into the Lanby's approach to optimization. And the way in which we've structured this program is around a continuous glucose monitor. helping people understand how to interpret the data from continuous glucose monitor and make tweaks to their lifestyle to be able to see progress and find that personalized regimen. So I'm really excited about that. We're planning to launch at end of October, and it'll be a 4-week program, super affordable. So it's a great way, again, for people who can't be members for any reason. Maybe it's because they're not in New York or, they can't afford it right now, but this is something that's going to be available nationwide. We have a service also called just the Labs, which is also available to non-members who want to be able to have a more functional approach to their lab work. So a lot of what I mentioned, which is most doctors are only, getting about 25 biomarkers included in your panel. This is an 85 plus biomarker panel where not only do you get access to the data, but you have a 45-minute consultation with our team to be able to understand what your results mean and how do you actually address them. So you get a care plan as well as that consultation so that you can have that personalized guidance around diet, exercise, supplements. So it's a really good one-time assessment, based on wherever you're at in your life to say, what's my baseline? What should I be focused on right now? And then, of course, if you do need ongoing care, that's when you can consider membership. And then we're launching just the genes. So it's sort of going to be in parallel to just the labs where, again, similar to lab work, we're going to, offer people the chance to do a deep dive on their genes and have a hour-long consultation with our team to understand what their genetic information shows, what their unique sensitivities are. They may not be, deficiencies in their labs today, but what are their sensitivities that they should be focused on as they look to, optimize their health going forward. So really a lot of insights that are going to come from just the genes as well. And hopefully in 2026, we're also planning to launch pediatrics because there's a lot of frustration around this idea of a holistic approach to child care. People are having to turn to social media once again for guidance on, navigating picky eating or how to get to the root cause of eczema or, how to sort of manage this idea of parenting and empowering your child, but also, creating boundaries. And there's just so much confusion out there today around pediatrics that we felt like if we really wanted to, take a proactive approach to health, we needed to look at the whole family unit, not just parents. So really excited about that launch as well. So yeah, a lot in the works.
Are some of those programs, I thought I heard you mention it, are there some of those standalone programs where people can do it if they're still deciding on whether or not to join the full membership of Lanby? Okay.
Exactly. So the Lanby membership is available New York, the tri-state area, Florida, and California. A few of these other services that I mentioned, so the metabolic health program, just the genes, and just the labs are all available nationwide. You don't have to be a member.
Well, awesome. Well,
yeah,
Well,
really
Chloe, tell my audience how do we get more info? Is your website the best place to get all these different programs and also check out the Lanby membership experience?
Yeah. Definitely the website is great. We also have a newsletter where we share, upcoming news around launches, different promotions that we're doing, partnerships, events. Some of our events are virtual as well. So it's a great way for people that are not in New York to be able to still participate. And then we also have a podcast that I host that is a great way for people to hear directly from specialists around some of the topics that, are very much trendy, but require demystification to really understand, like, what are the nuances? Are they relevant to me? Are they not? What should I be concerned about? What are the pros, versus the risks? So our podcast is called Get Well Better. And you can find it on either Spotify or Apple. I would say, yeah, definitely the website is also a great way to also tap into our blog. We have a great blog where we share information and tips and guides and how-tos.
Very cool. Well, my audience knows I'll put all those links in the show notes, your podcast website, and any social media handles you have out there. But love what you're doing. And this is just, this is why I keep podcasting, because it also helps me stay in the game to even know half of these things even exist. That's like the real problem. But, I love the direction that health and wellness is going. So I really appreciate what you do.
Appreciate you. Thank you for so much for having me.